Hey there, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are tuning in from. We're so happy to have you here for this decoupled, slightly early Valentine's Day special.
We like
Today,
to
we
give
are
our
going to,
gifts early, right?
yeah, it's what you want, right?
Yeah,
Like, anytime they're like, hey, do you want this a little bit early? Yes, of course.
of course.
Before we get into it, actually, can you introduce yourself real quick, Jonathan?
Oh, do we have to? Oh, this is the hard part, right? Nobody likes to do this. Yeah, Jonathan Reed. My label says principal solutions engineer for Sitefinity, but in all fairness, I like drinking all of the progress/Telleric champagne. Particularly today, we're going to share a toast with Next.js/React. Maybe a little bit of cream-filled chocolates along with it. So I'm going to go full in on the puns with the Valentine's Day. So strap in, crowd. That's what we're doing.
I
So
respect that.
I've been a .NET Sitefinity developer, Sitefinity specifically for over 12 years. Worked in the consulting space for a number of those years. Been here at Progress for 6 years. Did other .NET development before that. Did a small stint with some Ruby on Rails. We don't talk about that. And now I'm here, right? And then I really take a lot of focus, through our team of solutions engineers on the technical aspect of the Sitefinity realm of things, which includes bridging gaps between Progress products and technologies. In this particular case, React and Next.js and all that fun stuff. So that's how I got here.
Nice. And for those of you who don't know me, there's probably not as many. I feel like I get pulled onto these streams pretty often. My name is Catherine Grayson Nans. I'm the senior developer advocate. I tend to focus on the React side, although I also do a lot with design and UX and the like theming and styling side of things. Very front of the front end, which is why I'm actually really excited about this, right? Because that's kind of the whole
Right.
gist here, is that we're taking Sitefinity basically on the back end, and then that lets us focus with
Definitely.
React Next.js on that front end, doing all the front end stuff that I love to do.
You nailed it. I mean, the decoupled part of the name of this particular event is definitely a pun. So we're definitely going to focus in on how you guys get to use technologies that you know and love and are interested in and are cutting edge, and use them in, I'll call it data-driven applications, but content-driven is probably a better term in this particular case.
Mhm.
And then passing off, control to certain aspects to people of less technical nature. So we're really going to focus in on how all this comes together, what that architecture looks like, and yeah, we are going to code it live. So don't worry about that.
Which is good. I see one of the comments actually already. Someone has said, I found the solution to have an extremely high barrier of entry, so I'm hoping that this gives me a different perspective, which I think
Is that
is
Sitefinity or React or both? The Next and
um,
Sitefinity. Okay, yeah, thank you for
yeah, there.
clarifying. Awesome.
Yeah, and he says specifically next a lot. So
I yeah, I was gonna hide this portion of my life, but I don't necessarily disagree. But yeah, we're definitely gonna dig into there. The going from a model view controller type life cycle that I've spent in my .NET career, moving to React slash Next.js, it's definitely a different concept for sure. And some of my team is probably mad at me right now for all the things. I'm sorry for what I said when I was learning Next. I mean, that's my apology, right? But yeah, we're definitely going to get into it. Yeah, hopefully we can peel back that onion for you a little bit. I don't know, we don't want onions on Valentine's Day. I should find a
yeah,
different analogy, right?
maybe a
Anyway,
chocolate orange or
yeah,
something.
chocolate orange. We'll get through those segments of the chocolate orange. We'll definitely get into that for sure. I think maybe I'm just kind of skimming over the questions. Yeah, I mean, knowing each framework individually, hopefully, again, by the end of this, you'll have to know less of Sitefinity. So the idea would be that the things that you would do in Sitefinity would be potentially create types of information, content structures, right? You'd be entering content and information into it, but the page templating, the widgets or components will all be built with that Next.js framework. And again, hopefully having to know a little bit less because we have this whole concept of a REST client that helps you interact with the resources of Sitefinity. So we'll go through some of those aspects as well.
So,
So yeah,
before we get in too deep,
yeah.
if we
I'm sorry,
have
I get all excited.
no, and that's what we want. But I think we might have some viewers who are not super familiar with Sitefinity, who might have just kind of been on our like Kendo UI side of things and maybe haven't played with Sitefinity as much. Can you give us like a super high level introduction to like, Sitefinity 101?
Yeah.
What is it? What does it do? How's it
Let's
built?
I think one thing that could kind of help lay this out is why don't we do a little bit of screen sharing here,
Perfect.
and let's talk a little bit about what's really going on here in regards to architecture. Now again, I'm not going to bore you to death with slideshow. This is my least favorite part of the job, but I think offers a great illustration of what the heck's going on here. So Sitefinity, content management system at its core, oftentimes called the digital experience cloud. It is an easy to use content management system, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, you're going to manage things like pages, which we're going to really focus in on today, and then you're going to manage collections of content and information. These things would be news, blog posts, events. These are all things that we come with out of the box that you can get started on today, and we'll focus in on events a little bit later. And then you can model your own types of content and information. So I have customers who do stuff across the realm of things, right? Let's say we're building a portal and we wanted to manage our internal team members, right? We'd create a content type, which is really just structured information, a class, if you will, for fellow nerds on the call, right? Again, it's got properties, first name, last name, where's what office are they in, with related data that we can build in the application. So you could relate it to an office and display, create a org chart, whatever else you wanted to do from it. So you're going to model your own types of content and information and then expose that through pages, right? Now, us as developers, our focus is one, obviously styling and UX components. And again, Sitefinity can be used for a bevy of things. Uh, Public facing sites, right? Could be used for intranets or consumer basing secured portals where again you might have a customer or partners or whatever logging into your application to consume information about their line of business, right? I often use a demonstration site that's about food and restaurants and franchising. My secured portal is my franchisees log in and they collect quarterly reports and stuff like that, which is kind of similar to what we're going to go through here in a little bit. So Sitefinity itself and its content management system sits up here in this big blue bubbly area right here, right? It then produces things like native APIs, the layout as a service models, and then exposes that to in a decoupled nature to a front end application. Now, in this particular point today, we're going to focus in on this middle one here, React Next.js, but we have it in many of flavors. So if you want to do .NET Core or ASP.NET Core, to be very, very specific, or correct, as some team might say, and Angular. Sorry, I like to shorten it there, but it's not really, that's not the right approach. I get it. Um, Exposes everything via APIs. These APIs are all OData, JSON APIs. And they fully self-document in the back end as well. We could probably take a peek at that as well. So this is kind of the general architecture. Sitefinity living up here. Non-technical authors, editors, marketers, business users are oftentimes creating, managing all content and information. And then us as developers, we're doing the cool stuff. I mean, not that what they're doing isn't cool, but so it really gives best of both worlds is really going to be our focus today. Devs get to use dev stuff, marketers get to use stuff that's easy to use. Marketers, authors, editors. I'll use those terms kind of interchangeably throughout the conversation. So that's kind of the general gist of things, and we will be jumping into the back end. Let me get through it. I kind of jumped around some of these things, but there's one other thing of why we should go in this decoupled nature. So traditionally, for many, many, many years, Sitefinity included, we really only had a coupled experience, right? So when you deployed the application, the front end, so the way that you build the pages, everything else was all bundled in one thing, right? And so when you wanted a new feature, widget, etc., you had to deploy the whole application and potentially could result in downtime from the application, etc., right? Now, with these newer technologies like Next.js, ASP.NET Core, etc., decoupling that from the middle tier of the application layer, so the APIs, the intercommunication between the database and etc., we can now deploy faster. We can also deploy on lighter weight boxes or less expensive boxes like Linux, etc., right? Or using even functionless type things that whatever I don't play in the AWS space, so somebody correct me whatever I say is wrong here. Um, all of that again in a more timely fashion. So really the focus is in on the decoupled nature of a content management system is we get to do what we want. And when I say we, I mean developers. And again, deploy things more rapidly, more isolation, less things you have to do in the middle tier of the application. So this is really what it ultimately boils down to here. Website user makes a request. It goes through the Next.js front end, API calls to the back end of Sitefinity. It then returns the JSON calls back, and then it on the Next.js render, and I got an extra dot in there. It understands how to render page components. Components then interact with other APIs like news or blog post or whatever it is you might be working with, and then ultimately returns back to the user HTML scripts, etc. Right? So this is really the life cycle of how this is all going to work together. All right, I think that's enough for the boring slides there. I think time to get in there, but
Yeah.
clear as blood
Let's see some code.
or clear as chocolate milk. I don't know what's a good non-clear Valentine's beverage. I don't know. Uh, I don't know. So ultimately, we're going to take sort of again the best of both worlds here. And this particular page here has a mixture of great things. We have one, Sitefinity content on the right-hand side, news. On the left-hand side, we actually have a Kendo UI chart. Now, this data is coming from what I'll say is a third party. So it's interacting with Clear as Mimosa. Love it. That's
I
perfect.
love that.
I should have used that. That was,
Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't mean to
that was,
distract you. I just wanted to pop
no,
it in
that
there
was
because it was so
perfect.
cute.
I need it. You guys got to keep me on my toes. I appreciate it. So anyway,
Sorry.
squirrel. All right, so we got the Kendo UI here using React Next.js components. We're displaying data from a third-party source. In this particular case, we're looking at some team member stats, right?
Nice.
A couple different options here, volume, charts, etc. Over on the right-hand side, we're using an out-of-the-box widget for Sitefinity. Now, again, the idea of a widget, I'll use that term interchangeably with component, right? Widget, component are something that a user is going to place onto the page to expose something, right? And whether it's a custom chart like we have here on the left, or it's just traditional content over here on the right, a component is going to offer that capability. So this one here is an out-of-the-box component widget. Includes things like paging with Sitefinity, so we can jump through the different layers and pages of all of my news articles. I only happen to have 6 in the system right now. Don't hold that against me. And it automatically manages the routing, everything else. So even includes tools to be SEO friendly for anybody who wants to take this on from a public endeavor, right? So we got all the tools that, again, marketers, authors, non-technical users, which you're going to see in a minute, have to offer. Here, we're using a combination of both Sitefinity data, so content management data, and a Kendo scheduler, where we're able to, one, manage our events, upcoming events, so to speak. So tomorrow is Valentine's Day. And of course, right now we're right in the middle. So if we go into this, we're right in the middle of our decoupled Valentine's event here. And this was all managed through a very clean, easy to use UI in the back end of Sitefinity, which I promise we're going to go into in just a little bit. And then lastly, one of my favorite components from the Progress Kendo UI is a grid, right? Grid, again, reaching out to a third-party API, in this particular case, whatever that data source is, and we're exposing lots of information. In this particular case, it's about quotas and our team members. What is their engagement? What are they being rated as? Are they online, offline? This type of stuff. Maybe I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about Brianna here. We can again search for stuff across all the different columns. We can even export for Excel, PDF, and so much more. How about some grouping? I'd like to group it by a country, right? So here again, we're bringing together the best of kind of three worlds in this particular case. Is one, React, Next.js, sort of in a general awesomeness, right? We layered on even more greatness with the KendoReact components, and then all coming together, which again, I keep promising this and I will deliver, is how this gets built in the back end by somebody who is typically of non-technical nature. We may do it, at first step from a Sitefinity perspective, but again, it really offers a nice, clean user experience for non-technical users to build these types of things.
So just to be clear, someone without a technical background could go in and kind of change the data, right? Could add things
Yep,
to the backend via Sitefinity that would then get picked up and shown in
of
the
course.
scheduler. Could add things that would then be,
Yeah,
reflected with all of these various kind of subsets, filters, data points, ratings in the
exactly.
grid.
So now, and again, in sort of full disclosure, this grid and this chart, the things that we configure in the CMS are really the labels right now. With a
Okay.
little bit more effort, I could offer additional features. So maybe I could, control the buttons, or maybe I did want to allow them to say, set up certain date ranges. The
Right.
cool thing about the widget construct in Sitefinity is that you have the ability to build out designers, which we're going to focus in here on a little bit, which really
Hmm.
then bridges the gap again between the technical group and the non-technical group, meaning here's all the things that I want you to be able to interact with, like, again, maybe I was like, I want this to start, instead of 2020, it's 2023 or whatever, right? I don't, that's what came from the example. Don't hold it against me. But so you could give additional control to team members who are not in IT with what we call our designers of widgets, which I think that's a pretty good bridge to get us over into some code, right?
Yeah. Can
So
you zoom in a little bit in
I
your,
sure will.
and I'll
Let's
change the
get something
layout to give
open
us some more
first.
space too. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get something open here first. So this is, so again, just a quick NPM install of this application. This is all documented and we'll give you resources here in a little bit. We get the sort of sample structure in play. So we got our app, traditional Next.js, React type of stuff. So I'm not going to go
Mhm.
into uber depth on that, but basically everything is sort of entering through this one layout here, right? So this is our initial page template. So our page template then gets pulled into the back end of Sitefinity, where we layer in Sitefinity widgets and functionality, right? So if I go back here to my front end, at my template level, I have my main navigation in black here, my footer navigation or area in this lighter gray color, plus some of these other things. These are done at the page template level. And we'll get into some more of that as well. I'm not going to go through every nitty little gritty here, but that's just kind of the entry point there. And then we talk about components, right? So these are all the components that I've put together so far. We're going to look at the Kendo well, get QR. I don't know where I got I from. And yeah, I'll get this zoomed in here in a second when I open this up, because this sidebar never lets me zoom. So um, and then we have kind of two files that really sort of give us what we need. There's a third file to then register these components, but we do follow traditional uh, Next.js stuff here.
Yeah, and we have a comment. I didn't want to interrupt you while you were kind of
No,
talking
please hit me.
because it's
I just caught my eye there too. Yeah.
yeah. So Skin Dog here asking, curious if there are examples of Next.js widgets utilizing other Sitefinity services like authentication, identity, personalization, A/B testing, some of the other rich features that it offers.
So here's the cherry on top. All of those things that you have just come with it, right? So A/B testing,
Mm.
personalization, just work. We're using our new design page builder with this, and yeah, you'll get A/B testing, you'll get personalization, and they'll just work with these particular widgets. So yeah, no need to do anything heavy lifting, or it's just gonna work. That's
If you're
that's
about
part of
to
the
show
value of it.
this,
I
If you're
will.
about to show this, feel free to like shut me down. But I
No,
feel
you're
like I
good.
don't have a clear picture of the like design page thing that you've kind of been talking
Yeah,
about. Is that a
that's a good
template
point.
editor?
Yeah,
Um,
let's do this for a second here. Whoop. So let's, ultimately again, we start out with this one physical file, right? This is our entry point for the entire application, right? So here we're rendering children, which
right.
again are widgets and components. Let's bridge this gap a little bit, and kind of step one of a Sitefinity application is building a page template. So welcome to the back end of Sitefinity. Traditionally, let me go a page back here. Traditionally, you're going to land on what we call the dashboard. It's going to give you lots of bits and pieces about what's going on within the system itself. So here you can see I've been uploading images, doing a bunch of other stuff. I've been working on pages without SEO data. So again, if this is a public facing site, that's going to be important to make sure you're managing that. But kind of, yeah, step one of a Sitefinity application is page templating. So as I design a template, or even if I create a new one here, we'll just do the proverbial test as a great developer that I am. And then we're going to select a particular page template to base this off of. Now, in our particular case here, we're going to select a Next.js template, right?
Mhm.
Uh, I've already done one template, and you can see here it's called Next.js base. We actually allow you to base templates off of other templates, so you can stack on layers and functionalities, right? So in this particular case, we started out, we built this particular template using the default one. So if I come here, it really just gives us one place to start building, right? And here
Okay.
I'd start to drag in widgets, components. Kind of the next step is what we call sections. Sections are a breakdown of areas. And one thing that hasn't been noted yet, as I add a section here, this is one of my favorite parts, um, is that when you add a section, by default, we base everything on Bootstrap. So check this out. I want to make this a 6 column. Boom. No problem.
Nice.
Done. I want to make this 3 columns, 4 columns. Let's get to three. I want
And
to
that's going
drag
to
them.
be automatically responsive, I'd bet, as
You
well.
got it. Will you do you want a job? You want to come on my no?
Ugh.
Yes, it is automatically responsive because absolutely is shipping out of the box with that Bootstrap components. Um, I just added another widget there, to further this just a little bit from a design aspect. Let's pick a background color, an image, a video. Everything that you see here, I didn't, aside from the widgets, so these components exposing data or information, the rest of it was just done with me pointing and clicking, right? You can come
Mhm.
in here and get into even more depths. You can add your own individual classes on each one of these columns. We could label it up, whatever, left call, middle call, whatever. You can go quite far. You can add extra attributes. So if you wanted to have, some Aura stuff here, or I mean, we could even go, BS carousel. I mean, I would have to double check if that would actually work.
That's
But the
nice.
point is, you could add attributes which get placed onto the HTML elements.
So that's
So
really
this is
good
kind
for
of
making sure it's accessible, right? So be able to
accessibility
add
is,
in that kind of
yeah,
ARIA announcement stuff if needed, and
exactly, labeled
that's nice.
by, yes, etc.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is kind of the building blocks. The cool thing about this page template builder, it's the same for the page builder. So as we go into that in just a minute, you're going to see it's the same UI, the same controls are available, and then here, ultimately, this is what we built out of the box. I think I saw one. Um, yeah, as far as the out of the box widgets go, let's get that popped up here really, really quick. And again, everything that I've shown you except for what I identified were custom widgets already. Let's look at the rest of the things that we have out of the box. So all these up here were built by me for my particular usages, right? But we really have a one-to-one with what we call our ASP.NET Core render as well. So we got an image widget, a call to action, which is buttons, right? They're based on Bootstrap. Content blocks, this is your rich text editor. Content list, this would display things like news, blog posts, or even your custom content types. Document listing, and of course, a contact us style form, which is built in another area of the application as well. Navigation widgets, search and classification widgets. So for filtering content and information, obviously searching through the website, logging in, logging out widgets, changing passwords,
Mm.
resetting passwords, registration widgets,
Oh, that's
uh,
nice.
and then layout as well.
Mhm.
One other feature that's pretty cool about it, maybe not the best place for me to show you here, but once you build one of those sections, you can actually create a section preset that could be injected and reused across a bunch of different types of pages. I find myself personally using it in the public-facing market a lot for landing pages. I build a landing page that's 2 columns. It's got some content over here, a form over here, a background image. It's got rounded corners. It's styled and all sorts of great stuff. I can just insert it directly into a page, and then all my authoring team has to do is simply change the form or maybe update the content. So lots of good stuff there.
That's really nice, though, especially if you're building kind of a larger site that's gonna have lots of pages that are gonna follow that same kind of format, and
Yep.
that's generally what you want, right? You wanna create a design that's consistent, that users don't have to relearn every time they load a new page. So if you can make that and then just leverage it, maybe like a product page or something would be a good example of that, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
do it 1,000 times.
Exactly, exactly. One other thing that kind of popped in the chat here that's worth mentioning out loud is in this three-tiered architecture of Sitefinity, you do not need the ASP.NET Core front-end renderer to do this particular application.
Mhm.
If we well, in the three-tiered architecture, basically, you've got to choose your front end, right? And at this point, we have the Next.js renderer and we have ASP.NET, right? You do not you choose one or the other, basically, to make it quite simple. Although they can work together, in general, probably the recommendation would be choose one. So you do not need the ASP.NET Core renderer to do this particular functionality. The Next.js renderer controls and manages all these things in this new editing experience. So I guess to kind of go on another point earlier, if you go here to this image widget and I'd like to personalize it, I haven't generated any segments in this particular site, but I could personalize that widget. That was a question earlier. And if I was on a page, I could do an A/B test of a page as well, personalize the entire page, or at the template level, I could
Mhm.
personalize widgets. So for whatever, maybe I wanted to use, maybe I wanted to personalize this instead of KendoReact. Maybe they came in on a campaign, but they were more interested in Angular or ASP.NET, right?
Oh, you're
I
looking to
could,
start a fight. Okay.
yeah. Let's duke it out. But I could personalize this image based on UTM parameters or something along those
Right.
lines, right? I mean, like that's the beauty of it, and it ships out of the box. It just works. So I hopefully that's a good level set on kind of where things
That was
start,
helpful. Yes, thank you.
the designer, and then yeah, ultimately those page templates then get utilized in our hierarchy of pages here. So this is really my sitemap, right? I can of course publish pages. I could unpublish them. I could schedule publishing of pages. I want it to go live tomorrow on Valentine's Day, the real Valentine's Day, at 9 a.m. or whatever it is that you want. You could do all of that. We do ship with these content types out of the box: news, blog posts, events, images, videos, documents, forms, so contact us style forms. Lists are just kind of title body kind of situations, tags, categories. All this stuff comes out of the box with Sitefinity. So it's a great, if you are looking on an endeavor of building with Next.js or other technologies and public facing sites, portals, finance, I mean, we touch every industry that's out there with Sitefinity. There's no limitations on, what it could be used for. So I guess all that being said, well, maybe let's look at what are we at time here? We're about 30
We've
minutes
done
in,
about half
huh?
an hour.
How
Yeah,
are we
I'd
doing
like
on
to
questions
see.
here? Let's skim a few of those, huh? I think,
They've actually been doing a pretty good job in the chat of
yeah,
replying
perfect,
to
perfect.
questions. So I've been trying not to kind of interrupt you. You've been on a really
No,
good
you're,
roll, and the questions are getting
um,
answered.
yeah,
So
one thing you'll note about me is I won't shut up. So do interrupt me when you think something's worth mentioning out loud. But I think yeah, we've mentioned yeah, and team. Thank you for managing the chat there as well. So I think
absolutely.
most of them are getting answered there. Yeah, we will have some resources here, and this will be kind of fun because we're actually going to use that QR code generator from Kendo to give you guys some resources here at the end. So we'll see that here in a minute. So I think this
Yeah.
can kind of take us full loop into code. But you said there, what else did you want to see?
I was just trying to actually the code. So you were one step
You
ahead of
like
me. I'd love
code?
to kind of see what like the bridge, I guess, right? So we've got these templates that we've made in Sitefinity. They're looking good.
Yep.
We've defined our sections and stuff that we want. So now if I want to start putting Kendo components into them, right?
Sure.
How does that
Yeah,
happen?
Kendo or whatever, in this
Or
particular case.
Telerik
So yeah,
or yeah.
yeah, whoever. Yeah, general Next.js stuff, whatever, right? In this case, obviously, because we're friends, I decided to go with some Kendo components.
Aw, shucks.
And in this particular case, yeah, I know. Flattering will get you everywhere. So in this particular case, doing traditional React/Next.js stuff, importing some goodies here, right?
Yep.
Oops, I'm in the layout still. Hold on. Let's go into the QR thing. Again, importing some goodies here, right?
Mhm.
Um, so in this case, got our barcode slash QR stuff. This one is a pretty straightforward component, not a whole lot from it. But what makes it powerful is the idea of designers, right? So you haven't seen this in the back end of Sitefinity yet, but when I place one of these components onto the page, I, as a developer, have the capabilities of passing off stuff that I would like to have my non-technical team um, uh, my non-technical team to enable technical or
Mhm.
non-technical my technical team to enable non-technical team members.
Right.
So in this case, we have this idea of what we call an entity, right? An entity is the properties that you would like a user to set. And this is the backend user, right, of Sitefinity. And then we also have within there different types of things you can interact with Sitefinity content. You can give things like color pickers here with data types. You can set what order the fields might work in.
Mhm.
Are they nullable? All that kind of fun stuff, right? I've even set a particular default color.
Right. So it's kind of almost TypeScripty in your ability to kind of check what's being or to define, I guess, what's being passed in, right?
Exactly. Yep. So these are the things that are particularly settable in the back end. So this is probably a good point where we can jump into a page and kind of bridge some gaps here. So here is our, don't scan these yet. They're going to ruin my surprise. Maybe I should pull on another
We do
screen here.
have
Uh,
someone real quick asking if
yeah.
your slides will be available. They wanna show off to management some of what they've learned here.
Oh, how about you bring me to management and I'll help you. But either way, yeah, we can definitely make them available. Yeah, we'll figure out how to reach out
This whole
afterwards.
recording also, once we finish this session, before
Also
too
true.
long, it will be added to our YouTube channel, so you can watch it video on demand. You can clip the parts that are interesting to you and show it off, or you can strap someone into their chair and make them watch the whole thing.
It's true. It's true. But yeah, we're definitely again, my role as solutions engineer is part of the sales process. I just hide that word sales, especially when I'm talking to you guys, because nobody likes that, right? But yeah, we're more than happy to have conversations with you personally, or of course, have a conversation with management as well. All right. So in the widget selectors, right? I mentioned earlier that these are some components that widgets that I put together in order to facilitate some of my particular business needs, right? In
Mhm.
this particular case, Kendo QR, I'm going to create the content in here, and here are those fields that I'm able to configure.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, color pickers. This link
Ooh.
selector is something that is going to allow me to interact with Sitefinity content. So it could be a page within my system,
Mhm.
or it could also be a page externally, right? So you're able to do all that. So this designer here, so these three fields are what we refer to in Sitefinity as an entity, right?
Mhm.
And these are the fields that I've set: a headline, string, a link. It's of type link model, which is a Sitefinity specific thing. And then color, we then define the data type as a color picker. You could define palettes and do some other fun, cool stuff here. But in this particular case, we just allowed for some default colors, and you could, of course, put hex colors in there as well. Then from the front end code, right? So the TSX file in this particular case, we then have properties here, right?
Mhm.
Which is of type widget context, and then my entity, right? This gets passed in here. We do need to place it onto the div, so data attributes onto the div, and then I have access to the properties that have been set. Maybe I might go back and make this a little bit cleaner to read, but here we go: props, model, so that's the entity properties, and then here you can see, whoop, I have headline, I have
Mhm.
link, I do a little bit of null checking there, and then if it isn't null, I have the href, which is a property of the link model, which is either the page I've selected in the backend of Sitefinity, or it's the URL that I've entered. And then
Mhm.
lastly, the Kendo QR takes a color attribute, and in this particular case, model properties color, and that passes in the hex color. And that's it. That's
So
how I
what
generated a QR code with Kendo and Sitefinity.
So I'm curious, what would happen if we were to not define something? So like the color, right? Not a
Mm-hmm.
crucial element to rendering. If
Sure.
we didn't define that, would it default? Would it do we have to define every prop that goes in?
Sure. In this particular case, it would default because I set a default, right?
Right.
So in
Yeah.
my entity, I defined it as black, right? Zero, zero,
Right.
zero.
I guess I mean if
So
you were creating an entity for something, would you need to list every prop that that component could take, or could you narrow it down? Could you only put the ones in that you want someone to be able to edit through Sitefinity?
yeah, yes. So these are going to be only the things that you want somebody to be able to interact with in that
Okay.
designer aspect, right? So this is what I want my team to be able to control in order to
Hmm.
successfully publish or use this particular feature, right? So if it was something like a grid or that chart, for example, I'd have a completely different list of properties.
Right.
All of the ones I've produced today all have a headline property, right? Because I wanted to display an H1 above it, right? The rest of them, well, this one has the most properties on it, but yeah, these are what we want the user to be able to set up and configure
Mhm.
on their own. I mean, I can save this without defining any of these things. It's just not going to do anything
Right.
because, well, I didn't define them, right?
But that won't, like, error out, break the application. It's just not gonna render, right?
I mean, I'm not going to say it won't error out. Now, as a
That's fair.
developer, some of that is our responsibility, right? So it works on my machine. Is the favorite line there, but
Classic.
yeah, I mean, you do have to be responsible when writing this code. Yeah, I did I did a null check on
Mhm.
in my UI, right? So here, if link is not defined,
Makes
question.
sense.
So right here,
Right.
uh, if it's not, then so I don't get that item not undefined weird JavaScript non-typed error. Well, typed because it's TypeScript, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, I tried to do my due diligence here. Obviously, we could put other additional logic in here. You know, if it wasn't supplied at all, don't even try to render it. I mean, we could put a lot of logic in here to help ensure whatever. Now this one for color, I happened to default it to black, so I wasn't as concerned about
Sure.
just placing it into there.
No, that makes sense. I was just kinda thinking through the multiple avenues that a developer has to kind of
Absolutely.
check the user inputs, define kinda, what renders, what doesn't, how much control they give up, and kinda where that how much control the developer has over the balance there, and it's quite a lot, it sounds like, which is really nice. So, we do have a couple questions in the
Yeah, yep.
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So, how would you go about requiring authentication in one of these widgets? So, an MVC would typically be an attribute on the controller. How's that work here?
Great question. I mean, you know, individual widget um authentication, not exactly a thing in this particular at least with our new renders. Most likely, the easiest path to securing components would be securing the page itself. So we would set the permissions on this particular page and use Sitefinity roles and etc.
Mm,
to say who can even access the page at all. Um, Now we can get into potentially some user context and some other stuff, and maybe manually check are they authenticated, some other things. And I think a teammate's maybe given some answers there as well. Nope, different topic. But yeah, I mean, in general, there's not an attribute per se, um, like we had on controllers in MVC and .NET.
and a follow up, what about a use case of consumer authentication?
Well, keep in mind, Sitefinity does offer capabilities for configuration in single sign-on. And I guess if you mean consumer like front-end authentication, we do, again, we offer, anything OAuth, OpenID Connect can be configured as front-end authentication for Sitefinity. We can do claims to roles type mapping, and then of course, claims to profile field mappings as well that could be used. Um, in conjunction, again, assuming that consumer-based authentication means front-end authentication. That, of course, can be used for back-end access as well. Again, if you internally, if you used Azure or something along those lines, you could require the use of that to authenticate to the backend of Sitefinity. So,
Right. And then one more question before I let you
yeah,
get back to the demo.
no, please,
Uh,
this is good.
Coke Zorro, great username, by the way.
It is good.
Would VS Code offer auto completion for available properties as I'm typing? So, like when you were showing the link, with the href property there, does it know? Is that kind of built in, or is that something that just developer knowledge at this point?
All right, kids, are we watching?
We're doing it live.
There they are, right there. So those are the three properties that I've defined on, in this case, properties. So it knows, right, that properties, and if we mouse over that, is widget model with widget model Kendo QR code. That's a mouthful. And here are my properties.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, if you are a longtime Sitefinity developer, you've definitely been through using dynamics and other things. So dynamics, obviously being the C# type dynamic, which offers no IntelliSense, right? So this is potentially an improvement to that particular situation. So yeah, they are offered there, and you can see that a couple of those are nullable. So I should do my due diligence of ensuring that they're set. So yep, IntelliSense is there. Enjoy. All right, so we define this, and again, I guess just kind of prove a point here real quick. Let's add another property to this, and we're not going to make it overly complex. At this point, I'm just going to set some order here. So this should be the fourth item in the particular list. Let's do code it live, saying, and that's probably a type string. And we can make it nullable and blah. Okay, cool. And we could add a rich text editor to here. I mean, again, we have a bunch of different data types, or I guess let's do some of that, because this is kind of the fun stuff. So here, here's where we're able to use some predefined types from Sitefinity. So choice list, complex fields, HTML, so the rich text editor, text area, whatever. So we could add some different design sayings if we want here. So we could add choices, or earlier or above, you saw me use color. We could have listings of complex objects as well. So, or array, right? So we can have an array of a complex items that user would be able to add one by one and control those link selectors. And again, this is kind of where the beauty of these designers really come into play. And let's make it a text. Actually, let's go HTML, since that gets us the rich text editor. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit my save there. I am running in debug mode, so this should go ahead and automatically update.
Nice.
Assuming I didn't stop it for any, well, it wasn't stopped because this is still running here. So let's get this page reloaded. And in theory, this is where it gets fun, right? In theory, I should have that property available to now set with the rich text editor. Now, I did not expose it in the UI, so we won't see the field on the front end. Really was just wanted to show the designer in this particular case. All right.
While
So
that's
as
loading,
this,
we did have.
yeah. Oh yeah, hit me. Go ahead.
Yeah, we
I'll
had a
get this
question.
going while you're doing that.
Yeah, how well has the front end performance tested for Core Vitals?
You
not
win,
familiar with
because
Core
I'm not
Vitals.
familiar with Core Vitals. So I would love to get testing with you, but I don't know what that is, to be quite honest with you. So I'm gonna go with it did awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, sorry.
Okay, second one.
Yeah.
For CMS designers, are there CDN-based selections available?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. So we have two integrations for, well, specifically for web dams, we have Frontify and Cloudinary for digital asset management systems like SaaS-based offering. You can roll your own if you really wanted to. Now, this would require that you had access to the CMS layer of the application.
Mm.
As far as CDN-based selections, I think we're maybe using those terms interchangeably with WebDAM. But I mean, you could front end Sitefinity with a CDN. It's definitely possible. In fact, our cloud versions of Sitefinity all include a CDN with Cloudflare. So you can definitely front the application with a CDN for sure.
And we did have a clarification actually on Core
Oh,
Vitals,
perfect.
which is that it's the Lighthouse page
Uh,
speed, the Google
um,
GCP score.
I haven't personally tested it, but let's let's do it and let's have a conversation.
And then one more. Does this support a module builder? How would a module building framework work with this?
Let's do it. Okay, so yeah, Sitefinity, one of its core features is module builder, right? So we'll be able to model and build our own types of content. So let me finish this thought here real quick, and then let's go dive into that a little bit deeper. But so in this particular case, you saw me just in a matter of moments add an HTML field to this particular designer, and you can see now I have all rich text editing features here. And spoiler alert, this is a Kendo editor. Um, so I mean, here at Progress, we do drink our own champagne. The Sitefinity backend is using Kendo components, the Kendo editor in this particular case, which you could add additional features up here if you wanted to, all sorts of great goodies. So yeah, that was really quick. Again, us adding additional properties and fields. How about this though? We didn't have a link for my besties here at Code It Live, and we're going to add a link in here so you guys can get to that. It might be angry about me not including some HTTP stuff. All right, so twitch.tv, oops, TV. I gotta look at my hands sometimes because I'm that lame. And then code it live. So that'll be our link. We'll insert our link. What color you want to be, Catherine? You got a favorite hex color, or
Oh
what do you want to
yeah.
be here?
Give
I
us
guess
like a yeah, so
gotta
give
go
us a pink.
pink.
It's
We gotta go
Valentine's.
pink, right? It's Valentine's Day. Like pink, or let's go for it. That's pink.
Yeah.
All right, again, I'm not going to enter anything to this particular field because, as noted, I did not implement it in the UI file, right? So I won't have it exposed. But here we are, code it live. We're going to hit that publish real quick.
Conversation
Um,
heart pink. Look at that.
yeah, oh yeah. And then I'm going to pull this up at the end so you guys can have a chance to scan them and stuff. So we'll come back to that. All right, now let's swing back around to, yeah, one of the major feature components of Sitefinity is our module builder. So we have back here, we have the module builder, right? And this is where you get to design your own types of content, right? This is going to be structured information. So we're going to have fields or properties, text, long text, rich text, content type selectors, image, videos, documents, whatever you want to build, right, is going to be available to design. We can have parent-child relationships of these types of content. So a parent could have children, think about blog posts or blogs, excuse me, and then blog posts are underneath that. And then we'll also have relationships like one to many. So I can actually build this, I can have a content type that selects and displays other types of content. I don't know that we're going to, well, we'll just go with the example that's listed here. So we'll call it press releases. The single type will be press release. And we're not going to go through this whole entire step here, but, and then we'll add our fields, right? And as noted earlier, we have all these different types: SEO fields, open graph fields, related data, which will be other types of content in Sitefinity, address fields, numbers, link builders, so on and so forth, right? You get to design out all these properties that you want. And then ultimately, and again, it'll take a minute for that to spin up because we handle all the wiring behind the scenes. It'll then be exposed via our web services. So let me pop this up in another screen. And then lastly, if you want to expose that content on the page, we have one widget that sort of does it all, and it's called the content list widget. So the content list widget will expose our types of content in a collections manner. So if we go back to our homepage here, and I'm editing in, opening it in edit mode. And I think one thing that I haven't really pointed out is, maybe you caught on this or not, but if you look at my backend editing and you look at the front end of this application, there really isn't any difference, except for I got a couple contextual things that let me know, like, here's where I can do some fun stuff, right? So it is really WYSIWYG editing at its best. So this content list widget, let me add another one here to the page here. This content list widget would expose any type of content that's in Sitefinity that you want, and then offers field mappings to certain types of templates. So we have a number of different templates here. So we could do list with image, whatever, list with
So that would be
image.
good for something custom, right? Because it exposes everything, right? And you can
It
do
exposes, yeah, all
whatever with
the
it.
content collections, exactly. So in this
Mhm.
case, I only have my out of the box ones: news, post, events, etc. You already saw. Well, I have events here, right? And we got to get back to that here in a second. Here, I would then map out the fields, and then it would display in the UI, right?
Mhm.
And then you get to select the detail template, etc. So yeah, building out your own types of content, that is a first step of Sitefinity. And as mentioned earlier, if you want to know more about the web services and you want to know how to interact with them a little bit more, like what fields are available, everything is self-documenting in Sitefinity. So if I wanted to know how to interact with news, here's
That's
exactly
really
how to
nice.
do it. And this ultimately is going to bring me back into another path here with about 7 minutes left here is events. So earlier I showed you that calendar or scheduler widget.
Mhm.
I used our out of the box REST SDK, or we call it the REST client as far as code goes, to retrieve my events and display them in the calendar. So let's look at that in a little bit more depth here. I don't know what I changed there, but I'm going to save it anyway. Okay, so here we're looking at the scheduler component, right? Scheduler widget. In this
Mhm.
particular case, again, using Kendo Scheduler, I then interact. Let me make this sidebar a little bit smaller here. I then interact here with the REST client. This allows me to then asynchronously get a hold of Sitefinity content. So REST client, get items, the type of item, in this case, event, and then these are the fields that I wanted to retrieve. Now, I could get all the fields. There's a lot of them, but I only really need these. And in fact, I don't really even need all of these. But and then there's a little bit of mapping. So this is a mapping field. Again, this is Kendo specific, not overly important, but start date, end dates, and then the scheduler. The scheduler is actually abstracted into another file because we need to use client here. And this is, again, the Kendo scheduler. So setting
Mhm.
time zones, doing all sorts of other fun goodies, etc. Right? So all that being said, we then get to rely, and I used a little bit of this to understand how to interact with it. So if I copy that URL, I'll just paste it over. Well, let me go to a new window here. Um, and we have Postman examples, all sorts of fun stuff as well for Sitefinity. But I mean, you really only need this right here. And let me format this up into a JSON payload. And these are the two events
Mhm.
that you saw on my scheduler, right? This
Mhm.
is this is all that the Next.js renderer is using. I mean, it's same for ASP.NET Core, but this is what it's interacting with. Are these REST SDKs, right? So this RESTful service, in this case, events, this is what it's returning. And then ultimately, we get to display, reload the page here whenever I changed. We then ultimately get to display the Kendo scheduler with our particular events, right?
Nice.
So that was the code that kind of runs it. And that SDK or REST client comes with the Next.js renderer, right? So you have everything that
Mhm.
you need to interact with all your different types of content, get the fields back that you want. And the reason I specify fields is let's reduce the payload. I don't need them all. So there's no
Right.
sense in getting them all. I could even narrow this down even further because I don't really use these fields, but I do a little bit of mapping here just to parse the fields into a date time. I actually don't even think I need to do that, but I do it just to ensure that they're proper. And then, yeah, display the particular items there. And we ultimately end up with this control. Now remember, so this is where we're going to come full circle here, right? So remember, I told you earlier that you as developers are going to get what you want, Next.js/React. Content authors are going to get what they want, a nice, oops, not images, those are fun too, a nice, easy screen to interact with and create content. So let's create a new event. So tomorrow is great. Holy moly, I'm a typer, right? Um, we're going to add a little bit of content in here. So tomorrow is a new day. Good thing we got the old browser spell check to keep John in check here.
There's something
Maybe,
about typing on stream. It's like my fingers forget how to work. I
it's,
swear to
yeah,
God. Just typing in public, man.
it's hard. So we're gonna make this event tomorrow, just because that's the way I label. Well, tomorrow's the 14th. All right. I got a little too excited about Valentine's Day. It'll end also on the 14th. And now we had an event already there, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. What time do we want to start? 7 p.m. Sure, why not? 7 p.m. And we'll make the close time. We'll make it 8. Let's go 8:15 p.m. Perfect. Time zone, repeating tags, categories, locations. Now, I'm not exposing all this data through the UI. So, but these are all the things that your authors and editors have to interact with. Maybe you want to get ahead of your content, right? Maybe this event is in 3 weeks, but you want it to be live on the site, on the scheduler in 1 week. We could actually come in here and we could schedule the publishing. Maybe we want it to go on Monday because the event's really 3 weeks away or whatever. We could schedule publishing. And basically what the API would show is only the things that were currently published, which that would not be one of them. All right, so prove the point. Here's the events API. So we're going to refresh that. So we got Valentine's Day, we got the decoupled one, and we have tomorrow is great
Nice.
there. So it's already there, but we of course refresh the page, and it'll add an additional event to Wednesday, right? Which happens to be tomorrow. All right, and then there's tomorrow's great. Maybe you wanted to drill a little bit more in there. You can see it kind of overlaps with Valentine's Day there. We can get a little bit more. Whoops, I'm not on today anymore. There's tomorrow. So again, you got all the events there at the particular scheduled time, working with the particular calendars there. So, and of course we could define colors and do other stuff. We just didn't go that far in this particular example. So that's really where everything kind of comes full circle. Again, managing content and information, even custom content types used with the module builder, this is the exact same screen. The only difference is the fields that they need to fill out, right? And those would be defined by you through the module builder.
All right, you ready for some questions?
Yes, please.
All right, so we have one that asks, someone on the backend can model or construct the content types for listing, and then they clarify the developer, not necessarily through the CMS admin.
So no, not exactly. It is done through the CMS administration panel. Reason being is, again, continuous integration, continuous deployment may need to be taken into consideration. There are no necessarily code-first implementations of modules at this particular point in time, or at least best practices, there's not.
Cool. And then we did have a couple of folks that noted a little bit of a delay between when we load the scheduler and when the events show up on the scheduler. And there's a little bit of back and forth in the chat about like what that is or what's causing that, or if it's, if you could speed it up. That's a demo specific thing.
That's it. Yeah, great question. I will rely on my development team to answer some of that, which they are in chat. So
Yeah.
it's going to depend on a number of different aspects, obviously payload size and a bunch of other things. But we're definitely going to also, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Cache is not enabled. So we do offer caching, server-side caching, of course, using the Next.js protocols. Correct. As noted by Martine in the chat, I am not taking advantage of that, and not necessarily even rendering them server side. Which actually leads me to one other point, which I forgot to mention, is how did these widgets even get in the back end of Sitefinity? There is one other file that you will need to interact with. It's called the widget registry here, and these are where I register my widgets. So here, component type, entity type, server-side rendering, and then a little bit of metadata here for what the title of the widget should read like.
Mm-hmm.
So again, yeah, this is definitely a demo type setup here, not taking full advantage of all the caching and other type of features.
Cool. All right. Now I have a question, which is
Yes.
admittedly not something covered in the scope of this demo, so feel free to tell me to shove it. But I, as someone who's definitely on the front end design side of things, right, I spent a lot of time in the theme builder and I spent a lot of time customizing the look and feel of our Kendo components. How
right.
much of that can I do?
I
Uh,
mean, well,
all of it?
lucky for you, the theme builder, right, ultimately produces a CSS file. We would
Yeah,
simply just use it, right? And
cool.
that, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, managing brand and themes, that is one of the benefits of Sitefinity, right? So again,
Mhm.
between IT, design staff, etc., you can really manage an entire brand. Again, whether it's a portal or a public facing site, you're going to use the technologies that you want, Next.js in this particular case, to again bring the confines of everything together. I mean, Sitefinity is really a guard-railed type system, right? So when I
Mhm.
place a widget onto there, I intentionally only exposed a certain set of fields, mostly so we can't mess it up, right? And by we, in that particular case, may be somebody who's managing a page. We
Right.
only want to expose the things that we know won't ultimately affect the actual rendering of the component or item.
Yeah.
So yeah, bring the obviously the theme builder works. I mean, all you got to do is simply get your export of the CSS and load it into the particular application, and it's done via traditional aspects on that particular layout file. So here we would just be, you can see we're loading in some Bootstrap stuff there.
Nice.
Here I loaded the general Kendo themes from the npm package, and then I have my index CSS file. And by all means, if you want to use client, or you want to use pre-processing, SAS, whatever. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you
I'm sure there are folks that will be thrilled to know they could use some Tailwind and like
sure.
get,
So one of
get
the
things
other
going.
benefits of the Sitefinity framework is you can replace the design framework. So yeah,
Mhm.
admittedly we ship with Bootstrap 5, but you could replace it with Tailwind 960 grid. Is that still a thing? I don't know. Somebody ping me. Whatever it is you want to bring it.
Yeah, someone in the comments already like,
Foundation,
yes, Tailwind.
Tailwind, got to vote for the Tailwind. Yeah, so there's some simple things that you would need to manage and do, but you can replace the responsive framework of Sitefinity
Nice.
with your favorite aspects. It would still take into effect columning, all those types of things, because they're all column based in the end. It's just a matter of classing and some other stuff. So there's a small amount of configuration, but you could replace the front end responsive framework.
That's nice. All right. I think we might actually be caught up on the comments. And oh, no, one more.
Perfect. Keep them coming.
Have there been testing with third-party React packages?
Well, I mean, in so kind of full disclosure here, Sitefinity and Telerik are two entities of progress. So in reality, the Kendo controls are third party because although we hang out and we do share champagne or mimosas, as we call back there from earlier,
Right.
it is technically a third party package, right? It is
Yeah.
not part of Sitefinity. That being said, no, I don't know that we've tested any other um, situations or any other packages, but I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work.
Would the same be said for other React frameworks
I
necessarily? So
think
if
I
you're
think
not a
so.
like Next.js person, if you're a Gatsby person or whatever, I'm trying to come up with other frameworks off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, in this particular case, it does rely on Next.js, and that's in order for us to be able to get that page building experience. We do need some server
Gotcha.
side rendering in order to facilitate that. So yeah, somebody may have to hold me true on what other frameworks might be able to be used, but in general, as far as Sitefinity is concerned, if you can bring it, I'd say 99.9% of the time you can use it. Um, so yeah, it would be a matter of just doing. So yeah, as far as other React frameworks or other things, yeah, this ultimately will have to have Next.js just because of the way it has to work in order to get the page builder and some of those aspects. Um, but yeah, as far as other
Yeah.
responsive stuff or other front end frameworks, yeah, there shouldn't npm them up, load them in, obviously reference or import them,
Right.
and you should be good to go.
But because we're all in the family, right? The Kendo stuff is going to be what's tried and true. Is going to be what we reach for first on the
Of
team
course.
because it's what we like. So I would probably say that's your guaranteed best experience. But from a
You're
technical
definitely, yeah.
standpoint,
I
it makes
mean,
sense, right?
and yeah,
Hmm.
we're all friends here. We really are. So I mean, yeah, using the Kendo stuff obviously does have an advantage. It's one vendor progress in this particular case.
Hmm.
Um, you know, my my issues with loading in Kendo controls were, admittedly, I am not overly well versed in React and the Next.js patterns, and that was it. So I had a learning curve in that aspect. I mean, in full disclosure, I put together this simple site in about a day. I got the ADHD, so I did about 54 other things in that time period. Emails and whatever else, but relatively straightforward to get going and get started. So I think that kind of leads us back to, let's go back here to the learn more page and get this up for a little bit. So we have it for the recording. And yeah, scan those QR codes, learn more. Going from, we got Kendo React there in the purple on the left. Just learn more about Sitefinity in general in the middle in green. This is a link to the Next.js React renderer for Sitefinity, which is on GitHub. And then this is just the Code It Live Twitch channel, just to make sure that you're subscribed and you're following us around and getting stuff to do. So those will
Yeah,
be there for you. Get the scans. Yeah, as far as assets like slideshows and etc., I think we may need to figure out how to follow up with you, but or reach out to us. Either I don't really know how that works, to be honest with you, because I don't know who you are by your username, unfortunately. So,
it's
but
probably
yeah,
easier for folks to reach out to us through
yeah,
another platform. If you want to drop a comment here, we will connect with you right here and now. But also, like, I know I'm on Twitter. You can email me, you can DM me, and I will make sure that you get connected with whoever you need to. My Twitter username is here on my picture here. I'm gonna remove this. That's my username. You can find me everywhere at Catherine Grayson, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever your particular poison is.
you
And
can
how
find me
can folks?
places too. I just don't. I guess I don't advertise them as well as you. So sorry about that.
No, you're good.
There was one other
Um,
question that we could probably address really quick there at the bottom. So, in order for the Sitefinity instance to pick up the registry, that requires a deployment to wherever you're utilizing the instance. And in this particular case, everything is on my local host, but doesn't have to be, right? The CMS in our three-tiered architecture could live anywhere. There is really just a small amount of configuration as far as the Next.js setup goes. And in this particular case, environment.development. Yes, I am currently on my local system. We do need an access key from Sitefinity generated, and that's it. So this could be anywhere. So for example, in our cloud deployments, if you chose to use Sitefinity Cloud software as a service, or as I call it, Sitefinity as a service, SaaS, right? Yeah, good. Um,
good.
you would actually not you would not be cloning the CMS locally at all. You would just have a remote URL here, and there's a couple other cloud specific things you need to do, but and that's it. And you would be connecting to a remote service. And yeah, of course, it could be set up locally. Keep in mind there is a specific package that you would install for a clean Sitefinity site from NuGet. So if you are
Mm.
going down that path, you're going to use progress.sitefinity.headless. Okay. And that doesn't bring all the extra .NET framework stuff that you don't need in this particular case. So you use the headless package for Sitefinity for the CMS layer if you're starting afresh. And then all you got to do is set it up. You could run it from Visual Studio directly. I stuck it in IIS just because I didn't need to touch it again. And then that's it. You hook it up. So they don't necessarily need to be deployed to the same instance or the same thing. They obviously could be both on the same server in IIS, but probably you're going to be looking at something with the .NET framework on it for the CMS at this particular point in time, a SQL database, those somewhere, right? Azure App Services are obviously a great choice. Microsoft's a good friend of ours as well. And then again, something else for the front end to render, and most likely something of Linux nature, something a little more cost effective than a Windows-based machine. No offense, Microsoft. Don't hold that against me. So that's more again sort of how that architecture works. So yeah, if you have additional questions, obviously reach out. You can find me by my name on LinkedIn. There are many other Jonathan Reeds, but not that work in progress. So feel free to reach out to me there as well. It is just Jonathan Reed. So LinkedIn.com/Jonathan Reed should be my situation there. So yeah, reach out, let us know,
Yeah,
and
and of
we'll get
course,
you
if you go
resources.
to If you go to any product pages, there's a contact us,
That
right?
also works. Yep.
Or talk to a salesperson. Any of the links on our website will connect you with someone who can answer your questions. No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate everyone taking some time with us today. Catherine, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for showing this off. This is really cool. And I also want to give a shout out to our folks in chat who have been answering questions. And the chat has appreciated that as well, right? They've been
Yes.
given quick responses and really good in-depth answers. So 10 out of 10. We love our team.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yep. All right. Well, in that case, I think we're done here. I'll
Awesome.
see you guys later. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye for now.